Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to our presentation today, AI and Ethical Storytelling, Reclaiming Narratives in Global Changemaking. I'm happy to present or co-present with my fellow panelists, Ivo Arrey and Hermine Mbondo. And we will get into who they are throughout the presentation. But we will, can I share?
No, so before we start, I want to play.
Yeah, please play the video so that we can share it.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Lubna Dajani, Chair of Catalyst Now USA Chapter and Managing Director of Ultimate. It is my honor to welcome you to the inaugural day of CCW2025, a day dedicated to mental health, well-being, and the undeniable role of art in social change. Around the world, mental health challenges affect nearly 1 billion people. That's right, about 13.6% of our global family. Anxiety impacts 284 million, depression reaches 264 million. And more than 700,000 lives are lost to suicide each year. The economic cost, over $1 trillion. Still, only 9% of those diagnosed with depression receive treatment. These numbers only stand to remind us of how deeply this impacts each and every one of us. But today isn't only about the challenges. Today is about how we can change the narrative. Across the globe, artists and social innovators together are building models of care that are accessible, inclusive, and are rooted in real lived experiences. Technology extends our reach and unlocks our hidden creativity. And art isn't just a reflection. It's an active force in healing and connection. Art turns stigma into understanding, and it opens safe spaces for sharing. It sparks compassion and mobilizes communities for social change. Today, you will see and hear how artists and innovators are using culture and imagination through music, storytelling, and visual arts to challenge norms, change narratives, and spark new possibilities. By caring for each other and by competing to complete each other's work to a common goal, and by embracing empathy, imagination, and creativity, we can truly reimagine the systems that are shaping our world today. I welcome you, CCW 2025.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, so Amina, you can take over.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that video that we played. And just to tell you what Catalyst Now is, because some of you may be members here and some of you may not.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you make your screen bigger, like put it in slideshow?
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh no, it's fine. Just so that people can.
Can you not see it right now?
Maddie, do you know how this
I think, Amina, whatever you're more comfortable with. We're seeing
okay.
the slideshow.
Can you see the slide?
I can see slideshow up. Maybe put presenter view.
Okay, right there.
Yes.
Play from current slide. If you go to play from current slide.
Sorry, hold on.
No problems. Now we're seeing.
Yeah, it will not.
We can see this over.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever
play
it's more comfortable
from current slide. How's that?
Yes.
This is fine. This is fine.
Okay. Sorry, Ken. All right. So Catalyst Now is a dynamic global movement of social innovators transforming systems and driving sustainable change to advance the UN Sustainable Development Goals worldwide. We co-create spaces where the world's social innovators connect, collaborate, and contribute to transformational change. It's Monday, so forgive me. So if you are not a member yet and you want to learn more about Catalyst Now, there's the link there. And Femi, if you can paste that into the chat, that would even be more helpful. So we're here to ask you today through our presentation, how can we share photos and stories responsibly, ensuring they honor context, consent, and humanity while navigating the risks of AI? Oh, I'm really having a great time here with this slideshow. Okay, let me try this. Okay, so Femi, are you going to put this poll or should we just do the poll in the chat?
So I wonder if I have the right poll here. What's the primary reason your organization tells story? That's the correct poll, right? Yes, and I can see people already responding.
Oh, wonderful.
Please,
I can't see the chat, so if you can tell me because I'm on full screen, that would be great.
Yeah, okay, so we have 7 responses so far.
Okay, and so what is the consensus here?
And most people are leaning towards to shift the narratives and create change. Please vote if you haven't, so that we can.
Yeah, that would help us to sort of set the framework.
Yeah.
So your choices are number 1, to raise funds or attract investment.
We have eight votes now.
Okay, and so number 2, to build awareness or credibility. Number 3, to shift narratives and creative change. Number 4, to celebrate people and communities. And number 5, to build ESG practices. So what would we say, Femi, is the winning here?
The winning here is to shift narratives and create change, followed by to build awareness or credibility, and then to raise funds or attract investments.
Okay, that's, it's not across the board, but it's a pretty good representation of what, if you're looking at the social impact, why people think that storytelling is so vital. Today, we're here to push that even further into ethical storytelling. Okay, so we're gonna start with Ivo. Ivo, do you want to give us, people can read on your screen, but if you want to give a brief introduction about who you are and what you do, that would be wonderful.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, and welcome to Catalyzing with Change. I am Ivo Arrey. I'm from Cameroon. I am founder and director at the African Center for Community and Development. We are engaged in diverse aspects of sustainable development. We have over 20 years experience in storytelling. I also have backgrounds working in journalism and in community radios, and storytelling has been the main aspect of my work, as well as other aspects like poverty reduction and also food security and environmental protection. I'm very glad to be presenting here, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivo. So we're going to start off with you. I'm going to move the slides as you talk.
Well, the first thing we're going to be talking about is on perspectives from an African-led organization on storytelling. And so this is a very pertinent issue, as much of aid and development work still focuses on needs-based analysis and frameworks on what is missing, rather than on positive things that are happening locally, recognizing local knowledge systems, innovations, and resilience. There's also the preoccupation with economic indicators over community well-being, holistic approaches, participatory and inclusive interventions, which lead to local ownership. And this is actually impacting negatively and leading to project failures. There's also risk frameworks about Africa. They are usually shaped by political and economic interests. And this is actually impacting on the kind of projects and businesses that are designed and implemented in Africa, leaving a good chunk of what the population actually needs in terms of business ideas and projects and so on. So communities actually living in immediate poverty or the various fallouts of things like climate change and so on. So there's also the issue that local stakeholders do not participate in shaping or designing interventions from the policy level. In this way, we have interventions that do not reflect local realities. They are top-down, and in most cases, local people do not see themselves in those kinds of businesses and projects. And in the long run, those projects fail. And this has actually translated itself into AI. AI systems are trained by bots that have the same biases from dominant models that actually are preoccupied on growth narratives and that treat local perspectives in a minimal way. And it actually leads to a situation where people are being spoken to rather than spoken with. And in this light, there is difficulty in having or setting up a very strong collaborative agenda that can lead to partnerships. AI is a very wonderful technology. It actually generates images that look authentic, but then the reality is that it takes away agency from local people. They are primarily the main source for storytelling. It is about them that the stories are supposed to be focused on. So in this light, we find ourselves in situations where people have narratives about them, but then they miss points about what they really are. And so it's clouded, inconsistent, and sometimes leads to a situation where the inaccuracies lead to the loss of dignity and objectification, and some other many aspects we cannot list here. And then the next thing we should be looking at critically is how AI is reinforcing the old school. I think we should.
Are we on this slide? Yep.
So we are having traditional development models as intimated that actually do not have the consent of many local stakeholders. Communities do not feel like they are part and parcel of it. And in this light, the poor are usually depicted as if they don't have agency and as if they are helpless. But the poor are not a passive lot. And Africa is not a poor continent. If we look at it critically or from data, Africa is not poor because it has more than 35% of the world's natural resources. It has cultural capital with more than 3,500 to 4,000 languages and cultures. It's got land. It's got the world's 60% of the world's remaining arable land. It's got a middle class that is over 450 million people that they are earmarked to double by mid-century. It has the world's youngest population. Actually, by 2050, 1 out of every 4 humans on Earth is going to be living in the continent. The continent is not a basket case. What is needed in the continent is beneficial participation that reflects on African realities, that puts ethical storytelling in focus, that showcases the whole about Africa, not just the challenges, that brings out brilliance, that brings out innovation, that actually opens windows for collaboration, partnerships that are win-win, that shall lead to growth for startups and long-term sustainability of the continent. So what really needs to be done? The next slide. We need to develop models that must include subjective well-being analysis, happiness indexes, livelihoods grounded audits, not just GDP or aid metrics. We know trillions of dollars have gone into aid, yet we still have situations of persistent poverty. We still have inequality. We still have issues of governance. We still have issues of poor access to energy and so on. So there is need for rethinking of strategies. And that means we must work with the principal pillar of storytelling, which is the do not harm principle. You have to be able to report about people in such a manner that's accurate, and the data should be conducted in such a way that the people they themselves will love and think represents them, rather than things that are going to be interest-based and lead to the designing of projects that do not reflect the needs of the people, their realities, or that are not going to be sustained in the long run, leading to wastage of resources or even duplication of resources in some circumstances. We have to be strategic and create local partnerships. And the best way to do that is to work with local experts and community leaders who have a reason to defend Africa, who have the situational intelligence that will be able to facilitate well-designed projects as well as businesses for Africa, and also that guarantee fundamental issues as human rights, dignity, and the fight against objectification. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ivo, for your very passionate plea about how we should be careful about AI and how we reframe Africa in a growth mindset rather than a poverty lens. So we're going to move on to our next poll. And I would love it if you put 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the comments. What do you see as the biggest risk in storytelling today? Is it lack of consent and dignity? Is it misrepresentation or lack of context? Is it trauma-driven or savior narratives? Or is it AI and digital misuse? And again, we will go to the chat. Remy, if you can help me.
Yeah, okay, so most people are voting in the poll. We have, I can see votes coming in, but if you can also put it in the chat, like Amina said.
Yes, please, because that would help me to see it as well. And I will get your help.
So as of now, we have the majority voting for AI and digital misuse.
Okay.
40%.
Yeah, and that is a big risk. And so that's why we are here to tell you about how to mitigate against that, what you should be knowing to move forward in how you tell your own stories while still being able to use AI and guide it effectively. Okay, so we're going to move on. Thank you for that. We are going to move on to Hermine. So Hermine, do you want to come off mute and tell us a bit about yourself before you get into your part of the presentation, please?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Amina. Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in this part of the world. So my name is Hermine Mbondo. And if I were to introduce myself in one single sentence, I would say that I help change makers and mission-driven organizations advance social impact through ethical storytelling that we're going to be talking about today, but also inclusive marketing, impact investing, and education through being the founder of both B4 Brand and Global Impact Hub. So it's great that I saw that the #1, I think, was like misuse of AI tools, because I will bring here my perspective as an agency owner, and we actually use AI tools every single day. I use AI every day. So I'm bringing here my perspective as an agency owner to explore how marketing and AI can be used to communicate impact ethically. And this is what we're going to see by co-creating narratives with the communities you serve instead of like speaking for them. So in a nutshell, at its core, since we talk about marketing is really all about creating value for both your organizations and the people that you serve. So marketing will involve understanding your target audience aspiration, needs, motivations, and then you're going to develop an offer. It can be product, services, or a cause. And then you're going to promote that offer to them effectively to eventually create value for your organizations because you have your own business goals, and your communities because you're addressing those needs. And here we are actually going to focus on one component of marketing, which is more the promotion piece, which is communication. And by communication, I mean we really have to think both about the message, like the stories, the narrative, and how are you going to distribute it? Because even your choice of media channels, you can make a stand on your values, something we're going to see a little bit later. But when we talk about ethical storytelling, like the question is not so much about how do we tell better stories. Like here we're asking ourselves, how do we tell stories responsibly and without, erasing the people they're about? And this AI era, there are a lot of tools you can use to help you with productivity, efficiency. But here now the new challenge is it's not so much about reach or being efficient, it's more about trust and integrity. So these are a few questions that you have to ask yourself, like whose stories is being told? Who's telling that story? Who's benefiting from that story? So let's say you have an organization, and then let's say you're a nonprofit organization trying to fundraise, and then how do you make sure that who benefiting from your story is not just my organization or my donors? For example, if you had a choice of like 2 photos, and one is maybe showcasing children who are like really, really extremely sad, and because you want to play on the emotions of your donors, instead of maybe choosing that photo, ask yourself, are you also respecting the dignity of those children that you will see in these photos? And also the other questions that you can also ask yourself is who is involved. So AI tools are great and they can support you in like drafting, translation, planning, but just make sure that narrative ownership ultimately stays with communities. Thank you. So now we're going to see how to build campaigns that truly include community voices. I don't know about you, but like you can put yes in the chat if that ever happened to you. But have you ever, seen a campaign and then you wonder, like, did they even like consult? Did they even speak to the people before launching this campaign? Like the people they're trying to feature? There are lots of backlash, I'm sure. Thank you, Joe. And I'm sure, yeah, it happened to you. Thank you, Amina. But yeah, it happens a lot of the time because and then that's why we're going to see here why co-creation is very key. So whether you're working on the client side or an agency side, like I'm not going to go so much into details, but there are different process into the creation process. Like you're going to have the research and discovery, then you're going to write the brief or receive the brief from your client. And then there's the whole creative ideation, conception, and then different presentations, and then internal reviews, production, execution, and then you're going to have launch and activation. You're going to monitor your campaign, optimize your campaign, have some reports, and then you have the postmortem part and like all the learnings that you get from that campaign. And at each and every stage of your design process, you really have to ask yourself this one, actually 2 questions. The first, but it's the same question. It's like, who is in the room? And most importantly, who isn't in the room? It's so important to make sure that the communities that you serve are involved from creation to finish, not just as data point. Like we can all do desk research and have all this data about the people that we're trying to showcase, but do you actually try intentionally to collect their voices and their opinion and their narrative, in a sense that, let's say you're working on a campaign, have you done any interviews or participatory workshops? Like how do you make sure that they're not just data points in the whole design process? So these are things that you have to think about, and most of the time really it starts with you, and by you I mean your team. Do you have a diverse team? Like having a diverse team, having diverse voices will really help spot all those biases, avoid tokenism, and all of the blind spots that we all have, all of us. So really make sure that you have involved those communities, and then it's done in a very participatory way. And if we want to move on to the next slide, please. So now, just some, I would say, practical strategies and ethical use of AI. So like I said from the beginning, co-creation is key. So involve your community members in messaging and visuals. And then also you want to tell the full narrative. So you want to showcase both, like, the whole entire narrative when you're doing it. So move from, for example, look at their suffering to maybe showcase innovation, like the whole entire picture. Using AI responsibly and ethically is also remembering that AI is just a tool. AI is not a storyteller. Actually, the storytellers will be the communities that you serve. So it's great to use, and a great use of AI is really for, let's say, for accessibility. Using AI tools are great for that. It helps with like productivity, translation, different examples that I gave, but always make sure to review, to validate AI output. You cannot solely rely on AI. AI can make mistakes. You have to challenge AI. You have to use your critical thinking. It's always something to remember. And then the distribution part is also very important. I'm going to give you an example. Like, then when you work on your communication plan, you can decide, I use these platforms, etc. So one example, like one of my clients, I work on the children's literacy, a national children's literacy program here in Canada. And then, so it means that I like my communities for that specific clients, like we have like children's authors, children's illustrators, publishers, this kind of people. And then in the past 2 years, they actually slowly disappear from X. Ever since Elon Musk took over the platform, they chose, and like we have like publishers, their last posts were like, we don't feel safe in this platform, we are leaving this platform. So the same, like your choice of platform to communicate is also a way for you to take a stand if you're doing ethical storytelling. So something to keep in mind. And then I guess I just had like some closing takeaways before we move on to the next part of the presentation. So just remember that ethical storytelling is not about simplifying stories for mass appeal, but it's about educating audiences with dignity and accuracy. AI can scale your work, great, but it cannot replace content, context, or community involvement. It's very important. Using AI responsibly as well by co-creating. So don't speak on behalf of other people. Validate all AI output, your visuals, your text, etc. And show agency, not just struggle. And then I would say distribute where consent is honored. Thank you, Amina. That's it for me. You're on mute, Amina.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Hermine. That was very well received. And I really like the part of co-creating with. It's participatory, not about. And I'm going to get into that. But it looks like my slide is missing for the next poll. So I'm just going to put it out here. And I'd love for you guys to put it in the chat of how many of you are actually using AI right now, either for your communications, your written stories, your photography, your research, your advocacy? If you could just write yes or no in the chat, that would give us a good baseline. And Femi, I'll get your help with that.
Yeah, I can see a lot of yeses in the chat.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Hermine. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for coming.
So now I'm not only the facilitator today, but I'm also a presenter. And I am Amina Mohamed. I am the founder and executive director of a Canadian charity, which is also registered in Uganda as a nonprofit called Cameras for Girls. And what we do is we train young women in Africa to use their voices and their agency through photography and ethical storytelling to find paid work in male-dominated media. Before that, I was in film and television for many years, having honed my own storytelling skills. And I will tell you a very brief story since we have time. My foray into ethical storytelling actually came about when I was in Uganda, developing Cameras for Girls. And I, as a photographer, was very much into street photography. And at the time, I didn't recognize what is this ethical photography? What is it all about? Until I was put in the crossfire. So one day we're driving through a marketplace and I see this butcher who's just cut off the heads of these chickens. And I am excited because I'm seeing the red blood pouring down the trunk, the white trunk. And I thought the juxtaposition was just incredible and I had to have that image. So I asked my driver to turn on, to park while I got out of the car with my camera already raised. And the butcher had a machete in his hand and he warned me from afar with his machete. He raised it and I ignored it and I kept getting closer. And then he stopped dealing with his customers and started giving chase. He was chasing me as I was chasing the vehicle, my driver, who decided to leave. Now, he wasn't going that fast, but it was fast enough that I was panting to catch up and yelling as the machete man was yelling after me. I finally got caught up. I jump in the car. We turn around the corner. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. And the driver stops. And I'm yelling, what are you doing? He's going to catch up. And he says, he looks me blank in the eye and he says, did you learn anything? And I was flooded with shame. And I, over COVID, took the time to really understand what is this ethical photography and to learn about ethical photography and storytelling and to immerse myself in it. And now today we surround our work with ethical photography and ethical storytelling at Cameras for Girls. And then I teach other organizations on the side. So what is ethical photography in the age of AI? Yes, it can be very helpful, especially if you don't have a budget for photography, which can be very expensive, excuse me, or you don't know what imagery to use for the story you're telling, but there's danger in that. It's because it does not show truth, it does not show context, and it does never involve consent. And so what do I mean by that? So if you take a person who's practicing ethical photography versus a AI that doesn't understand context about it, and they're showing children, and we've left this, view of storytelling in the past, hopefully, although I did see it a few weeks ago with Save the Children, where you saw that, poor Ethiopian child on a dirt floor, naked, flies buzzing, tears rolling down, poverty at its harshest, emaciated, and AI will recreate those storytelling images to elicit feelings from the donor. If you're talking about nonprofit or charity space, but if you're talking about taking children, AI will always show them, especially in the African context, in the same way, right? Because it's not through a growth lens; it's through a poverty lens. Whereas you, working in ethical photography, will know the difference, will be able to. Another thing is children don't have the ability to give consent. And many times their parents don't understand the harm of letting their children be photographed in a demeaning way. And so it's your job as an ethical photographer to really educate them about this. I'll get into the reasons around this a little bit later. Images influence how the world sees people, cultures, and entire communities. As Ivo spoke about, when we stop looking at, Africa in the poverty mindset, we can start to look at it as growth mindset, with abundance, with innovation, where it's all being framed. You know, it's one of the fastest growing continents in the world, not just in population, but in innovation, if we take the time to look. AI generated images risk erasing authenticity and reinforcing bias. So Hermine spoke about this in marketing as well. When we, leave behind the bias, we can really look at it and reframe how we look at an entire people, an entire community, an entire world. And social impact storytelling must say human-centered, not algorithm-driven. So the damage of what's been happening in social media is that everybody's chasing that elusive algorithm, and they're not necessarily putting ethics at the forefront. They're looking for shock and awe to get likes and comments instead of authentic, bias-driven or unbiased rather, and agency-driven images. And this is something that AI does not always give us. Why do ethics matter in photography? Every image tells a story. The question is, whose story is it? When we stop telling stories about a certain people or a certain community or a certain culture, we start telling those stories with them. It becomes participatory. They have a vote in their agency, their voice, how their image is portrayed, how their story is told. At Cameras for Girls, we share stories about our students and their work, but never out of context and never without their participation or their consent, which is more important. Ethical storytelling means you're asking for consent in every strict of the word. So especially when it comes to photography, if you're not getting consent in the images that you're sharing online, you're doing a great disservice to the people that you're collaborating, partnering. I don't like the word serve, but your work revolves, okay? Visuals influence how the world sees entire communities. I've just said that. Photography can either reinforce stereotypes or restore dignity. There are a lot of stereotypes out there about the Global South. And as someone who came from the Global South, from Uganda as a child, as a refugee, and now works in Africa through our work at Cameras for Girls, I see this reinforced stereotype a lot. And unfortunately, it's also within communities themselves because they've been forced to accept those stereotypes to be given aid or help or support by this charitable sector. And we have to stop forcing stereotypes for aid or support. We have to start asking critical questions. How do they want to be seen? What are we not giving agency or dignity in the images that we share? The camera is never neutral. It reflects the storyteller's perspective. So every time you pick up your camera and you look through the viewfinder and you take that image, it is reflecting your perspective on how you see the world. So I beg you to check yourself, especially as a traveler in a new country or meeting a new people, learning a new culture, anything. As a social impact person, this is essential. You cannot walk into a community and expect that just because you have maybe paid for this programming through your work or your donor has, or you're beholden to a certain demographic, that what they want to see is how you're going to frame your work. At Cameras for Girls, we never take dignity away from the women that we are working with in order to feed that donor appetite for poverty lens. We always look at it as a growth lens. And what we do is also educate our donor, our stakeholders about the right and wrong way for us to look at these girls in Africa. And so it's a very heavy responsibility I take at Cameras for Girls to ensure that these girls are always seen with dignity and that the images they in turn are capturing, because we are training them to be ethical storytellers so that they can get jobs in male-dominated media, are always framed around that ethical storytelling lens, that they cannot go into their own communities or maybe another another tribe community and depict their lives without understanding, without giving them agency and voice. It becomes a revolving circle. It builds connection, deep connection, not pity. Again, reframing from the poverty lens to the growth mindset lens, right? And you can do that through photography. And real stories, they deserve context, consent, and care. AI cannot do this. Even I have tested this, even in images that I've asked AI to create, because maybe I just didn't have the right image for my blog. And even with description of what I wanted, how I wanted it, funny enough, it'll always give me a white girl or Caucasian girl over an African girl, even if I tell it that we are working in Uganda. And that's AI's own biases and own stereotypes that it's put into place. And it takes me sometimes 5, 10, 15 like back and back to get the image I want. And still at the end of the day, it's never the image I'm hoping for. So I'm going to go into this by showing you examples, both from mine of what I've done in the past, from a teaching perspective, and both with my images and AI. And so to show you what it can look like. So this is an example number 1. On the left, it was taken in Tanzania. Part of our training includes a 4th day in our 4-day workshop where the girls actually get to go into the field, work with a partner NGO to learn how to take photos, document the stories around an ethical framework. And so this was documenting a savings program with BRAC International. And then on the right is an AI image. Same story, but look at how it's depicted. If you look on the left, we hardly see any of the girls' photos. They're exchanging money. You can see the woman on the right writing down in the ledger. There's a calculator. There's money being exchanged. It's a circle. It looks hopeful. On the right, AI-generated image. Why do all the grandmothers look deeply wrinkled? They're not looking at each other, they're not supporting one another. It's money being exchanged of hands. There's no dignity in this image. There's very, you got the context of what's happening, but it could be this young woman paying this grandmother money for something she sold her. You don't know. In the left image, there's context, and it's not surrounded by pity. The right one shows pity. This was an image I took in Uganda to document a school program in a refugee settlement. Number 1, none of the kids' faces are shown. Why? So I'm very careful at cameras for girls and outside in my own photography. Unfortunately, in our cameras or even on our smartphones, there is technical data that's written into every photo. It's called EXIF data. If you do not turn that off in your camera, AI can now tell you where that image was taken, what time, like the location to locate that child, especially if you show the face of that child. So we have a hard and fast rule at Cameras for Girls that one of our our storytellers, our girls, might have gone into community and told a story about a school or even at a child's birthday or whatever, and the child might be half naked or fully naked. Not allowed to share it anywhere online, not allowed in portfolios, nothing, because we don't want to be complacent about this, and we don't want to be complicit in this activity. And it's growing, and what it does is help child trafficking grow, sex trafficking grow, and so we have to be very careful with what's happening with AI and imagery. Okay, so this was taken. You can see it's a classroom, teachers writing, kids are learning, and you can't see any of the kids. On the right image, every single kid is seen clearly. AI could easily pick up where this was taken. It connects with heartstrings, but does not connect with the story and puts, again, children at risk, right? So there's 2 ways to tell the same story, one with dignity and one without. This I took in a refugee settlement in northern Uganda a couple of years ago. I was working with a US organization who had been working to put girls into high school through refugee settlements. They've been doing this work for 25 years, telling the same stories, which were always full of poverty lens images, very depressing images. Got a lot of donations, but the donors were starting to complain to this organization that we didn't like what we were seeing anymore. So they contracted me. We did the same storytelling training I do with our girls in Uganda or Tanzania at Cameras for Girls. I ran them through a photography training. First 3 days, everybody gathered from Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, South Sudan, and Malawi in northern Uganda. And then on the 4th day, we went into the refugee settlement. I still have nightmares of what I saw, but there was also a way to tell photos with hope. So these same 2 images I've taken in the same way. One, they're all, side profile. So you cannot easily pick out where they are, except for this young woman in the middle. But then I told the same story of them playing instruments, just the hand on this thumb piano. And it tells the same story, still with dignity. But if I want to be protective of these girls, I would use the one on the right rather than the one on left. This was also the same refugee settlement. So there are 2 tribes that were staying in this refugee settlement. One was the South Sudanese. They're all South Sudanese. And the one tribe is the warring tribe. This man comes from the warring tribe, and the organization had put him right adjacent to a non-warring tribe, and they were targeting him. Before he came to the refugee settlement, he had gotten knifed. So you can see here, he came to me and he started to take his clothes off. And I was like, whoa, just because I have a camera. And I was like, stop. And I got the translator to ask, what was he trying to convey to me? He wanted me to take his image so that I could go to the people who were supporting this camp and get him support. I tried, but I couldn't do much. I have no power. But if I shared this image on the left out there with the wider community, he would be further ostracized, further marginalized, and possibly harmed. The image on the right tells the same story while protecting him. This is a gunshot in his hip that never was removed, and now it's mangled him. And so same story, 2 different ways of telling it while protecting the person's identity. Super important. And I think we don't do that enough, especially when we are working in these kinds of situations. So this was a photo walk that I was doing in Uganda many years ago. The first image clearly shows the young girl, right? These are 2 young women, young girls having to go to the river to wash the clothing. They're not in school. You can tell from their torn, dirty clothing that they're living in poverty. And if I had shown the one on the left, she could be picked up by an AI tool. Now, this was taken way back in 2019 before AI, but today they could still tell me where that child was because my exit data. Same image, protects the identity, still tells the same story, right? So that is the end of our presentation, but I would love to open it up to some questions if we could. So we have some comments. Roberta says, I'm using it for research and image generation. Roberta, would you mind coming off mute and telling us what kind of image generation? Is there a possibility to do that, Temi?
Yes, she can just unmute and share with
I'm
us.
not sure if Roberta is able to.
Yeah. Here I am. Sorry, I'm outdoor, but I'm following you, and I'm also finding those insights really precious, actually, because there are aspects of also photography that we often don't think about seriously. So they're really paramount in my mind. My image generation was, I mean, not photography actually, but for example, I create some graphic novels. So sometimes I try to create some layouts with the help of AI tools such as Midjourney and cross-produce them with Adobe. But sometimes I also enjoy working on my own by hand, because in my mind there's also an aspect of creativity that must be preserved. So my insights is basically the support is something precious, but we should not, I mean, avoid or forget our personal know-how and get the chance of exploring our own creativity with everything we can see and imagine on our own. Sometimes we are really, I mean, put on a road by AI, and its vision actually sometimes can be inspiring. Some other times it's really banal. I mean, you fall often into the topic, into the cliche. So we must have this critical thinking always on in order to evaluate as it's, I mean, a proper insight or something we should just skip.
Absolutely agree. And if we don't, we risk, losing that this essence of the story really that we're trying to capture. Thank you for sharing. Do we have any other questions or comments? There is time, so we would love to hear your insights.
Helen said that she has used it for image generation to make flyers and research.
And I think I got a message from Howard. Howard, would you like to share?
Sure, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, here we are. Excuse me. So, as some people may know, I travel the world and interview kids in different places. In fact, I started in Uganda. But I always do it with parent permission, and I always do it in a neutral place. So we can't really discern background. We usually construct our own. And no B-roll for the most part. I learned that. So it's a one-on-one with permission that really begins with tell me about your name. No last names, only first names. I tend to avoid the school name itself and often the town as well. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong?
I love that. So I teach about not just ethical storytelling, but informed consent. So one of the issues that we found when we were doing consent in Uganda, Tanzania, or anywhere across Africa was their understanding of consent versus how the organization was explaining consent. Many times these parents or these communities will say yes because they feel that they have to. And what we do differently is I might explain consent in English because I'm teaching these girls in English because they need to know English. But then I will ask who speaks that language. So Luganda, for instance, when we went into, when I did a Train the Trainer last year, we went into work in Uganda, just outside of Kampala with small farm holders, women. And they spoke English, but at the same time, I speak fast and they may understand every other word. So what we do is we get a translator who speaks their language of understanding to explain consent word by word, and then have a checkbox. Yes, I allow you to share it on social media. Yes, I allow you to share it on newsletters. No, I do not allow you to do this. No. And at any time during the process, they may have said yes, but we do a second check back. Is this the story that you want us to share? When we're taking their images, we show them the back of the camera. When we finish telling the story or putting the story together, we go back to them and saying, is it still okay for us to share here? because without informed consent, they don't really understand what they're giving consent to. And when we went back to Helen, she changed her mind and said, no, you know what, on second thought, I don't want it on social media, but you can use it in your teaching, you can use it on your website, you can use it in your newsletter. And that gave her that dignity and that agency that this is all supposed to give. And especially when it comes to children who cannot give consent, their parents may or may not be understanding exactly what they're giving consent to. So that would be my suggestion.
And well, there's that. There's also, I almost always work with a school. So, I not only has the school reviewed what we're doing, but the school is providing a physical place for it. And there's always somebody from the school, typically a teacher, who's sitting just off camera. So, you know, so I can ask, are we okay talking about that? So, you know, so a lot of sensitivity about it. But at the end of the day, I don't know whether I'm getting all the information across to them. They seem to be able to answer the questions. We speak in English almost always, or with a translator that I hold on a very tight leash.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like generally I'm being conservatively appropriate, but you know, it's a brave new world out there. We don't know how to do this stuff yet. We don't know how to communicate across cultures skillfully. You know, I mean, you're breaking a lot of ground here, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I think, may I ask, where are the where are the videos shared after?
Oh yeah, they're all on, well, actually 3 different places. One, they're on a Vimeo site. So I edit everything and you cut it into shorter segments because they're half-hour interviews. Number 2, new book. Harvard Education Press has just published a book called Kids on Earth that's based largely on what I've learned. So yeah, those are mainly the 2 places. Occasionally I'll throw something up on social media just to get people thinking a little bit.
Okay, yeah, as long as you know, you're not giving away the location of where this is happening. Like you're saying, you're working with a school and the school is not using this to promote those children on the backs of trying to get donations. You know,
and often it might be Kampala, Uganda.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of exactly where in Uganda.
Yeah. I mean, I got to say I'm not perfect with that. Sometimes I'm a little bit more local, but for the most part, I'm not.
Right. No, I think you're doing your best. I wish you continue.
I mean,
reach out. I sent you my email, so reach out and we can have a further discussion.
Yeah, I've already.
Okay, great.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ivo and Hermine? Because they had some really amazing things to share. I see there's Ingrid says, how can photographers working in humanitarian contexts ensure that their storytelling empowers rather than exposes vulnerable individuals? I think it depends on the story you're trying to tell. You know, I work in sometimes very harrowing conditions in settlements, refugee settlements or others. And it's always about asking for permission, not from the organization that has hired me, because they already think that they have the right to be there telling any story. It's about the person that I'm telling the story with. So to give you an instance, we followed Elizabeth, a 15-year-old girl who was during the day through this organization, Mercy Beyond Borders, through the day at the school that they were sponsoring her to be with. Clean pinafore, laughing and happy with her friends, you know, studying, working. In the afternoon, we gather, we follow her, we take her back to the refugee settlement where she changes into her one torn smock, dirty, torn smock, sharing a space that is, you know, 10 by 10 with 15 other people. Her family had to walk back because there was no food from UNHCR. And I asked her before we started, where do you want us to photograph you and where do you not? And she said, I don't want you showing where we cook because it's right next to the latrine. I don't want you photographing the inside of our hut, but you can photograph the outside. And so she told us, She guided us, what we were allowed to see and what we were not allowed to see, what we were allowed to ask, what we are not allowed to ask. So by giving them context and agency in developing or co-creating and developing that story, that is how, you know, you can protect them. I hope that helps answer your question. I think that was.
Okay, yeah, so we have I found a question in the Q&A.
I'm just going to
someone's-
finish with Ingrid, just 1 second. Ingrid, does
Okay.
that help?
She said
Ingrid,
yes.
Okay, perfect. So next question, yeah?
And this is directed to Ivo.
Perfect.
How can international partners engage without overshadowing or redefining African priorities and perspectives? I put it in the chat, Ivo, if you can.
Oh, thank you so much. I think the first thing is that local experts should be in the design of projects, and community leaders should also participate in designing projects. It's going to reflect what are their needs and priorities. And in many cases, it should be based on data that's not biased, so that the policymakers are going to be able to design projects or businesses from informed data. So another aspect is to be able to look at the things that work in society, those replicable models that have been tested and that have been tried. These models should be the kind of models that will help to make other people to adopt or to adapt. And this is going to make more impact if many people can copy things that already work. So I think with that, there's also an aspect of partnership, which is very important. We should be co-creating spaces and organizations in order that we can work together for humanity and for sustainable development. There's an African saying that goes by, one hand washes the other. If you want to help me to develop, listen to what I want in terms of this development, and we are going to be able to achieve our strategic goals. Thank you very much.
I think that's a wonderful way to end the session. I want to thank everybody for coming this week, or sorry, not this week, to our presentation this week. And if you want to share what the biggest takeaway message from our session was today, you can share it on social media using any of these hashtags and the different places that you can share. The recording of this will be on YouTube next week, I believe. And we hope that you will watch, rewatch, and share it with others. Thank you very much. Femi, last words over to you.
Maddie, any last words?
Yes, thank you, Femi. Thank you, Amina, Eve, Ivo, and Hermine. Thank you so much for this super interesting conversation. We're looking forward to seeing all of you in the rest of the sessions during Catalyzing Change Week, and really appreciate the time the speakers have put into creating the session. See you around, and we'll upload the recording of the session today on YouTube.
Thank you very much.